Once again, I went for a walk to Walking Street, which you cannot do, but it felt more like being in New Delhi, so I ended up on the famous Soi 6. I was not prepared for the sheer volume of girls and retreated to what I thought was the quietest bar where I'd be left alone. This was a mistake because I was immediately jumped on by two girls and felt powerless to refuse their kind request to join me. Once again, I found myself attracted to both of them, and this was only fueled by alcohol. I was a slow drinker by nature, but for some reason the beers went down like nobody's business. Once again, I managed to extricate myself and get back to my hotel room. The following day, we visited the second company's factory. It was less modern than the first one, and they were a bit pushy to boot. After, we went for fish and chips. Of all things, I felt like the truly idiot Pommy Brit tourist in Spain, but Thai food just did not lie well on our stomachs. Rick wanted to visit some gardens. I could not think of anything more boring to do on a scorching hot day and spent the rest of the afternoon in the hotel pool. The whole time my mind was racing ahead concerning where I might spend the night, and of course ended up in Soi 6 again. I chose a very busy bar this time, thinking it would make me invisible, but no way, Jose. From nowhere appeared a beautiful young, no older than 20 years old girl and told me I was handsome. For a guy who has always considered himself not the best of looking, this was just too much to resist. And within an hour, we were together in my room and I was having the time of my life. I had never fallen in love so fast. Fortunately, we had to leave the day after to visit the third company in Chiang Mai. Chiang Mai was impressive and modern and very clean, and there were a lot of Western women tourists up there. Prices at this third company were significantly higher than the first two, so we safely knocked that one on the head and decided to go back with the Bangkok merchants. We spent 2 nights in Chiang Mai and I spent most of the time asleep, the jet lag having finally taken over my excitement. Back in Bangkok, I left Rick in our hotel once again and decided to try out Nana Plaza. This was by far the most stimulating and exciting venue I'd ever been in. In only the second bar, I paid bar and took a beautiful 26-year-old dancer back with me for short time. Despite the age difference, I couldn't feel it. Once again, I made the incorrect assumption that these girls prefer older men without suspecting other motives. The rest of the trip flew by in a daze, and getting on the plane back to England, I was the most depressed I'd ever felt. I got hammered on good wine in business class, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise. When I got back to my dear wife, I was so hungover and ill that my sorry state concealed the highs I'd had only hours before. The thought of settling down back into a humdrum life existence was one I knew I could never hack again. Once Pandora's box had been opened and you see what's inside it, you are under the spell and there is no return to normality. For the next few weeks, I racked my brains thinking of an excuse to return to Thailand. After receiving a mail from the company in Bangkok, I hit on the idea of telling everyone that a new line of products had been released, which I needed to see firsthand. Rick was of the opinion that they could just send us photos, but I said I needed to handle the goods, which was not a lie, on a different plane. I had been communicating secretly, of course, with the Soi 6 girl and the Nana Plaza dancer, unable to decide which one I liked better. Both were always online when I connected with them, and both said they couldn't wait to see me again. It never occurred to me that they were probably messaging 4 other guys at the same time, all believing she was exclusively theirs. So just 2 months after my virgin trip to Thailand, I was on my way back to Pattaya, this time for a 14-day holiday on the pretext that the jet lag is so bad the first week that you need a second week to unwind. My wife did not appear to suspect anything. Rick thought I was wasting money. I soon found my girl's bar in Soi 6, but was greeted by blank faces until an older woman told me she was off work sick. A drunk Norwegian on the next table belted out that meant she was away somewhere with a different foreigner. I took his wise words and visited a lot of other bars on Soi 6 that night, but could not find a single lady that really did it for me. The next day, I was back in Bangkok at Nana Plaza. and in the soft arms of my rainbow agogo dancer, who I will call Fern. I had never experienced such a passion in my life, and I convinced myself over the course of the next few days that this was true love. She even accompanied me to the airport, and I promised to send her £500 a month if she would stop seeing other men. I believed her when she said she would stop work as a dancer and get a job as a waitress instead. Our long distance relationship continued, and we did video calls most nights, English time. I was infatuated. I had never met anyone who ticked all the boxes. My insane life had taken off again. When I left for Thailand for the third time in 6 months, I came up with a story that I had found a new company up north who could give us a better price and range of products. My wife said she did not want me to go, and deep down I knew I was busted. As a mother of 3 children, she was an expert in non-verbal communication. Babies can't talk, so mothers develop this sensitivity that men don't have. She would have noticed the change in my demeanour and mood since returning from my previous 2 trips, not to mention my nocturnal habits where I was going to bed far later than usual. I did not tell Fern I was coming because I wanted to give her a nice surprise. I walked into Rainbow Bar expecting to see her in a cute waitress costume, but to my horror, she was in a bikini and curled up with another customer even older than me. I felt sickened rather than angry, but eventually she spotted me and came over. I then asked her straight up how much it would cost me for her to give up her job and come live with me. She said 40,000 baht a month would do it. I said I'd need to think about it. I had booked a ticket for 3 weeks this time, and when the day came to return to England, I was again totally disappointed. As I was about to check in, Fern called me and said how much she misses me. It was at that fateful moment that I threw caution to the wind. I'm not going home. I love Thailand, and that's where my future lies. The first month was total bliss. We moved into a nice condo with a swimming pool. However, the second month things started to become a bit sour. The 40k monthly did not seem to be enough for her, and in addition, she always wanted new clothes, gold jewellery. In the third month, she said she needed 80,000 baht a month because a family member was in hospital. Of course, I paid, but a few weeks later, her father needed a new pickup truck costing £8,000 because the old one was clapped out. At this point, I put my foot down, and her whole demeanour changed. No more affection, she became a monster and threatened to go back to her bar if I did not pay. This was the turning point. Although I was devastated, she left me the following day. That night, I rang my wife to tell her everything. I explained I was like an alcoholic and headed for self-destruction if I didn't get out of it now. She was having none of it. The day after, I received a flurry of phone calls. All my children told me how disgusted and let down they felt and would never speak to me again. Rick called me to say he was shutting down our business and would break every bone in my body if we ever met again. The final nail in the coffin was my wife calling and asking for a divorce. I could have said a lot, but I let it go at okay. I did return to England a few weeks later, and my wife did let me in the house but said her mind was set. Who could blame her? The divorce came through while I was staying in a hotel. My wife got the house and almost everything in it. My savings were already badly run down. Shunned by my family and friends, I had no choice but to return to Thailand, where nobody knew me. I am still there now, 2 years later, living in Jomtien. I have a new girlfriend, a single mum of 38. She is far less demanding and different from the others. This is because she is not Thai but Russian. And if that's not a strange twist, here's one that takes the biscuit. Rick had given me his Thai SIM card before my second trip, which was still stacked up with credit. One day I received a text from an unknown number. It said the following: I miss you so much, honey. You tell me you come back Thailand. Why you no come back? And that's basically the end of it. Again, I mean, such a lot of money. You know, he was paying this girl 40,000 baht a month, maybe a little bit more, because in the original story, he'd said £1,000 a month, which is probably 43,000, 44,000. I converted it in Thai baht so everybody could convert it to their own currency. But, you know, 40,000, and then he says, I gave in and I gave her another 80,000. Well, you're talking a couple of £1,000, $2,400. I mean, me personally, I'm not a poor person, but I couldn't afford, you know, to be giving girls 40,000, 80,000, buying trucks and all the rest of it. And I really can't understand why guys, okay, they fall in love, but to get sucked into the point where they lose so much money, I'm just thinking out loud here. It's terrible, really, what goes on. But one thing that does intrigue me, which he didn't mention in the story, something I'd like to know is, if he'd lost most of his money and he's now living in Jomtien, Thailand, how is he surviving? Because you've got to pay bills. It's cheaper in Jomtien, Pattaya than Bangkok, but it's not free, of course. He's got to support himself. I wish he'd ended by telling us how he did that. But anyway,